Meeting to order. Stand for the pledge of allegiance.
We need to, hold that thought. We got to do roll call first. Kathy Clater, Owen Stallings.
Yes.
Gerald Oliver.
Here.
And Scott Hagan is joining us on Zoom, but he is not acting as a board member as per Brown Act. We have to publish where he is, and he's on vacation and gracious enough to give us his time, but he's as a resident today. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
All motion.
Do we have a change to that one agenda item?
There is an update to agenda item 16. When I published the agenda, I did not have a certain amount of information that came to light after the fact. And unfortunately, I cannot adjust or change the packet or do anything without postponing the meeting. So due to that, my recommendation for that item is to table it, but there's a lot of information to divulge that we have now, but it'll just be a discussion item at this point.
Okay.
So can we pass the budget with this, this item 16 tabled? I mean, pass, not the budget, the agenda. Got budget on the head.
I would say that we should be able to make that note.
Okay.
Yeah, we can table it anytime.
Okay, we'll table item 16.
I would like it still to be a talking point because it will need to be addressed in a future item, but it won't be an action item. It'll just be discussion.
Right, okay. So then we can go approve it with tabling item 16.
I second the motion then.
Okay,
All right. Kathy Clater,
yes.
Alan Stallings.
Yes.
Gerald Oliver.
Yes.
Item number 5, approval of the minutes of April 9th. Motion to approve the minutes.
Yeah. They look fine to me.
Okay.
And then
I'll second it then, Ellen.
we need public comment. We need public comment, don't we?
We actually need to take a step back to item 4 and open up for public comment as well.
Okay,
Okay.
So any additional board discussion regarding the agenda?
no.
All right. Is there any public comment regarding the agenda? And then, all right. And moving back to item 5, we had a motion.
Ellen motioned and I seconded.
Oh, wait,
First,
move back to item
public
5.
comment.
Public comment on item 5 on the minutes for last month.
Public can't comment. We don't have any documents.
It should have been on the attached agenda packet.
Here now, I have 12 pages and
Did anybody else find issues with the attachment?
Nope, I read it online.
Okay. One thing while we're getting a chance to review that, I would like to say we've had some changes to our audio system and our video system and all these things going on. Anybody who is engaged with the meeting via Zoom will not be able to hear anybody in the audience unless they are on a microphone. So if you do have a public comment, we would prefer you use the stand and the podium. If you're unable, we have a portable microphone. Just raise your hand.
let me go back one.
And that way those comments can be heard by everybody at home as well. So were there any public comments we wanted to make regarding the approval of the minutes for April? Okay. Do we have a motion?
You did, Ellen. And then I seconded it.
All right. Kathy Clater,
Yes.
Alan Stallings,
Yes.
Gerald Oliver.
Yes.
Right. General manager report. It's been a busy month. We've been doing a lot of things. I've met up with Lassen County. I've talked to almost everyone down there with the exception of Mike. We keep missing each other. Probably my fault. But a lot of folks down there are really eager and anxious to help us. So I know that there was talk about potential tensions and things like that. I think everybody that's down there is pretty excited that we're opening up lines of communication. They're providing different levels of insights and information to kind of help us figure out where we're at and what puzzle pieces are missing and trying to get those back in place. So I think that's been pretty productive. We've been holding our standing sewer committee meetings, our recreation committee meetings, and our budget committee meetings. Those are happening currently, but it is an agenda item on the first Tuesday of the month. That probably may change as far as timeframes, and we'll get to that later on the agenda. But if there are particular expertise or particular inputs, we are welcoming anybody and everybody to join those committees. More minds are better than less, and all ideas are worth listening to and kind of figuring out how we get things back on track. So we're pretty excited about that. On the fiscal audit side of things, I am continuing to work with Holly every week on a weekly meeting, working through items, numbers, stuff of that nature. We got to a point where moving forward with Larry Bain is not going to be an option. Called him, he's not taking on new clients. He seemed pretty concerned about the mess where it was when he left. So we're going to need to find 3 bids.
Is that we're in a noisy spot?
And find, you're not required to mute, but if you wouldn't mind until public comment, that might be a benefit. So with that, we got to go through our due process per our board policy to find out who's going to be moving forward with that contract. Holly does have a couple recommendations to point me in the right direction. I've reached out to one of them already. The bid process is probably going to be a little bit tough because I don't think we can really tell them what we're getting into or what they're getting into to clean up what's going on. So we'll do the best we can. And then when I do have that, it might be a special meeting or it might be in June. But we're definitely trying to move forward with those fiscal audits.
Good. Looking forward to that.
One piece of information regarding Lassen County, there was a lot of talk about a forensic audit and the potential still on the table, but that is not a requirement that the county holds over us to get back to their treasury if we decide to do that. So at this point, my goal is to move us in the direction where we have that option, and then it'll be the board's decision if that's the right move for us. And we'll have to carefully weigh the benefits and the pros and cons, make sure that's the right thing. But it seems the path back to the county may not be as expensive as we were once thinking because those forensic audits are expensive.
Yeah.
Very expensive.
So that was an update going on there. As far as board policy resolutions and ordinances, as well as code, I want to provide a little bit of detail in here and just kind of in preface of what happened with item 16. There's a lot of different documents that speak to similar things or the same thing. So as we kind of move through this, and I'm learning, and I appreciate you guys bearing with me as I learn this, but it's kind of, it's a lot. We've got 4 different binders with a lot of different things to kind of bring together. And one of the issues we ran into was the policy was looked at, everything was looked at, the ordinance was missed. And so the ordinance really spelled out what we needed, or excuse me, the resolution. The resolution was missed and it just spelled out what we needed and provided all the information I didn't have. So there's a lot of kind of putting pieces together. I think on the board policies themselves, I'm not going to say they were a cut and paste from Lassen County, but a lot of it doesn't seem like it's super specific to Spalding. So as we run into things where we're trying to make adjustments and that's our code, that's our law, that's how we do everything. If it's not specific to us, there's going to be tweaks and things that we probably need to adjust as we go. I think over time it'll be pretty close to an overhaul. But I think as we can use it as a guideline and then get more specific as we need to, is kind of the best course of action there from what I can tell. Another announcement I needed to make was in the March meeting, we did retroactively install or vote on Kathy and Elle being chair and vice chair. That is an action that we are unable to retroact to the beginning of the year. So the effective date of those positions will be March 12th, which was the day that we held the vote. So I just needed to make that announcement. And then on the OES update, continue to have my calls with Amber. I actually have got a quote for materials, not only for the workstations, but also for our firewall switch, wireless devices. Everything is hitting our budget for the OES grant, which is fantastic. We also had a 4-hour Zoom call with Nikki, bless her heart. And she worked with us to get compliance and things of that nature. It was something that they do periodically, and I think it's kind of a random assessment. And so we scheduled this thing, and 4 hours later, both of us were ready to take a break. So that's about what's going on with OES. I do plan on getting, because that quote is time sensitive, so I need to get 3 bids that are comparable to that quote, so we can do a special meeting and get that moving forward per our board policy.
Very soon, right?
Yeah, so I think the quote is good through, I want to say it was the 23rd of May. So we're probably looking at probably early next week. I was trying to piggyback it on this one, and it just this week was a little rough. It was a little rough on time, so it just kind of stretched me pretty thin. And then last but not least, I'm actually going to turn it over to Mr. Scanlon. Neighborhood watch meeting this on the 21st. We're going to have some guests talking about some different things. So if you'd like to take the podium and kind of let us know what's going on.
Mike Scanlon, Lassen County Board of Supervisors, District 1. As Mike mentioned, we're going to join with the Neighborhood Watch meeting next week, Thursday, the 21st at 2 o'clock here. And I'll be present, bringing Sheriff McGarva. I'm trying to see if we can get code enforcement and public works to join in as well, and kind of have a town hall segment of the meeting. And basically the community can come out and voice their concerns about any number of issues regarding Spalding. And so I'll be here, other government, county officials will be here for that period of time. And so we're kind of hoping that the community will actually engage with us and let us know what's going on. And we've got some ideas too about recreational resources out here and things that we can do to try and help you guys. But we'll talk about that then, I guess. But
What time is that again?
It's at 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock on Thursday. Okay.
That's their regular meeting time. And so they'll go through part of their meeting, and then at some point they'll let us kind of jump in, and the sheriff will be, and myself will be speaking at that.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
So from there, I'll
Thursday?
go ahead and open it up to board
2
discussion
o'clock.
regarding any of the plethora of things that
I don't have anything.
Still have the same question about reimbursement on our OES funds.
So that was part of the 4-hour thing was we were working through, in order for me to process that, I had that resolution that we voted on. I believe it was April. It might've been March. I think it was March, because you asked last month and it wasn't done yet either. That was one of the things that she's been bogged down with everything going on her time frame, and that resolution had not been pushed through. So I was not able to take any action until that was done. That meeting was about a week and a half ago. And so we have not moved forward there, but now we are ready to. So
Okay. Just want to make
that's
sure we're on top of it.
absolutely fair.
Thank
Absolutely
you.
fair.
Appreciate it.
Any public comment? All right, we'll turn it over to Brad for the sewer report and item number 7.
Hello? Oh, there we go. I've continued making progress with the SSMP, specifically our asset inventory, such as our tractor, our spill kit, tools, etc. I continued working with the SCADA. I made a SOP for the SCADA, so that way if I ever disappear or Mike needs something on the SCADA and I'm not around, he can just refer to that and work through the SCADA. Let's see. We continued research on the check valve vault. We still, I don't think we have any information. Mike, did Mike reach out to you about anything?
We're still looking to work with Kathy and Dave to verify or get somebody certified and insured to come and do the project.
Okay, fair. So we're still working on that. So during one of my maintenance Wednesdays, I noticed that the lids to the distribution box, they're not anchored to the concrete, so we need to get that taken care of. Sorry, I lost my track. Previously, on our previous quarter's wastewater sampling. One of our samples missed their hold time, so we do not have a report for that one sample, but all our other samples, they came in just fine. I spoke with Mike Reese about it. Mike Reese said that was okay. Yeah, it's going to be a minor violation, but it happens, especially when it's new hands doing it. So he just said, just take it and go on to the next quarter.
Just to piggyback on that a
There you
little
go.
bit, the sample was taken at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, and it was taken correctly. We did all the things right, but there's a very specific time sensitive for one specific test that's taken, and the sample did not make it to the lab on time. So it happens. It was it's just kind of the driver got stuck in traffic too long or whatever the case was. But it was not an error that we could have really avoided. It was like we did the thing, and I was really proud that Brad, this is one of his first times doing it by himself. I went there with him, and he felt like he had a great grasp on what was going on. And it's unfortunate on our first try that this happened, but it was not due to anything that we did. So kudos to Brad on that. And so what we're doing to avoid this in the future is we're looking to, instead of taking samples towards the end of the quarter where we don't have time to make up a failed test like this, and again, there's multiple samples. This is one test that didn't come through. We're going to start taking those samples at the beginning of the quarter. So in the event this happens, we'll have time to make sure that we don't have that minor violation that Michael Reese was speaking to.
Thank you. You explained that way better than I could have.
Here for you, buddy.
So
I think you're good.
So Mike and I enrolled in the class grade 1
We can really hear you loud and clear.
Speak louder, can you guys hear me?
Yo.
There. Oh man. I get the headphone. Perfect.
Can you guys hear me now? Hello. So yeah, no, Mike and I are enrolled in the grade 1 sewer certification program. We met with Dave Hernandez when we toured the Clear Creek facility. And Dave said that once we both completed the chapter 1, that we would both, that he would schedule the on-site visit. We are currently working on that. I have completed my chapter 1. Mike, I think, just started, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Mike just started. He's been, like you said, he's been busy with all these phone calls and meetings, so he hasn't really had the chance to touch the book until very recently. So we're working on that. Let's see. Other than that, it was routine maintenance, daily flow monitoring, lift station reviews, SCADA monitoring, and operational inspections throughout the month with no major overflow report, incident to report. There we go. That's what I meant to say. Sorry. Not a good meeting this time. Sorry, guys.
You're doing fine.
You're
Let's
fine.
open up for any board discussion.
When are they going to start on the pond liners?
The pond liners is on the 19th.
One day or two, do they know?
One day. So Mike, Jerry, and I walked the pond. What was that? Tuesday, and we noticed that there were a few more holes. 6. There were 6 more. Sorry, 6 more holes. My apologies. So there were 6. And I went out and I marked those. That way, when we have Carson coming in on Thursday, they can prioritize which ones need to be repaired first, because we are only going to have them for one day. So we decided that we want them to look at all the tears and figure out which ones need to be done ASAP.
And our goal with that day as well is going to be not only repairing the most prevalent below freeboard tears, but also hopefully getting an idea of what an overall repair would be if they were going to come out and do everything.
Everything.
It seems like we probably might be a 2-3 day process based on what we walked and looked. If they're able to do what they say between I think 6 and 10 tears per day, depending on the size. We don't really have any that are super large other than the one in Pond Liner 2, which is priority 1. So worst case scenario, that one's getting done. But hopefully we get a lot of the other ones done as well and get more information about the longevity and where we stand with our pond liners.
But for now, we only have them for 1 day because that's what's all that's approved from the board.
That's it. Any additional board discussion?
Not me.
Any public comment?
Yes. Yeah, we live right next to pump 4. And we have been complaining about the condition of the road over the tanks and how it's been dropping for 8 years. I've reported it to the former board multiple times, to EPA, to Lahontan. Right. And recently we have been seeing in the past year, there is water forming just west of the pump. I'm sure you've seen that. And we also have one of the newer wells around here. Our place was built in 2014 and the well was put in then. We just tested positive for chloroform E. coli in our well. We test twice a year. We have Smith's pumps coming up. They're flushing it with chlorine, doing the standard. They check for leaks. If it tests positive again on Monday, they're taking the next test and mailing it to Reno. If it tests positive, that will go to the California Water Board. So I'm just letting you know there may be a serious problem in that area because our well sets up a little bit. There aren't any other people behind us. So there is an issue here. And I've been concerned about that water that you've also noticed that leaks out into the road from, like I said, just west of pump 4. So you need to know about this and you guys need to maybe start checking that a little better. I used to see Handy, I don't know, I haven't ever seen you do the water testing there where you take the lid, you go down. He went down and tested the levels of that. And I haven't seen you doing it. Doesn't mean you haven't done it. I haven't observed it. I used to see Handy all the time doing it, testing the level of that tank that's under Laurel Way. So I don't know what you're doing or what's going on, but you need to be aware this will go to the state if it tests positive bad again.
It should go to the state if
Yeah.
it doesn't test right.
And it should have been handled years ago.
That's been looked at, and that sinking of that cement around there has no bearing on the function of the
But
sewer system there.
but if it sinks far enough, you're going to be breaking those pipes in that area. And there's a leak somewhere because there's water or moisture.
How long has the moisture been there? Have you noticed it? David never mentioned anything about it, so
Yeah,
I'm just wondering if this is something
I've
new.
been seeing it this year. So it may
And
be
you said that was which lift station? The one over here by the
Four.
arena?
For
Laurel.
out.
This one.
Yeah,
Yeah, because right west of it, you'll see.
Oh, the one that's dropping.
It's
yeah.
Yeah, and it goes probably 4 or 5 feet from the pump on your guys' lot, and then it flows into the road. And it will do that even when it is dry. It's not all the time, but it happens.
Mhm.
Hey, Vicki, what did you say your water tested positive for?
It's coliform or E. coli, the over-the-counter test. It's an EPA approved test, by the way. Test for both. The test that we will be submitting Monday will test individually because it's done by a lab in Reno. So I would advise people that live in our area to test their water.
Will the test determine for you the source of the contamination?
No,
No.
that's when the EPA will come in and do that.
Thank you.
Well, E. coli comes from septic systems, so.
Correct.
I appreciate the public comment. Any additional public comment? All right, we'll move on to item 8 in the fire report.
All right, so in the last month, we got dispatched for 3 medicals, 1 traffic collision. No fires, thank goodness.
Decorum, please.
We just had our fire extinguishers done, and I was talking with Alpine Fire about potential of it doing potentially a community fire extinguisher day, possibly June, July. He was willing to come up if we could get quite a few willing residents if they want to come up and do it. He was going to do it for $26 a fire extinguisher. Commercial fire extinguishers are required every year to be rechecked, and residential is every 6 years. He was letting me know. If anybody's interested, please contact the office or email me, and you can see if you can get enough people want to do it. Permits are required now. Please call the 530-257-BURN to find out if it's a burn day or not. You can go on CAL FIRE burn permits to get the burn permits. I recommend screenshotting them or saving emails just in case they show up and want to see it. We do have a clarification because I've had a few people ask me with our calls because of our limited amount of volunteers. It is our policy to not go out with less than 2 volunteers. Remember, we are a volunteer community. We do our best, and we try to get to every call that we can. On the other great news, our water tender's back. We got it back yesterday. It's a long drive back from Fernley. The bill ended up coming to $12,852.74, so roughly half of what the worst case scenario was. We're still working with Kenworth to see what they were willing to help us with and cover. I'll let you know as soon as I hear anything from them.
You get the mic a little closer.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
That's pretty much, I think that's all I have. Any questions from the board?
Is there something we can post somewhere to let people know what our volunteer fire department actually does, that our medical is for first aid and comfort until CAL FIRE gets here?
We could definitely, we have our mission statement.
Because as many times as we've mentioned it, the emails and Facebook and all of this stuff is just ridiculous.
We worked with LAFCO, and that's when we redid the mission statement on the website and stuff, but we could definitely put something in written form.
Okay.
Right
It
on
might help.
Service District website.
It's
Yeah,
on our
yeah,
district website.
yeah.
Do you also have a Facebook page for the fire department too?
We do. It's Eagle Lake Spalding Volunteer Fire Department, and I try to post stuff on there as well, especially the burn permits. Sorry, I'm not used to this one. Yeah, we do Facebook as well as the district. That's pretty much the only thing. And then, like I said, I can get you something in written form that we can give out as well.
Okay.
Any additional board discussion?
I don't have anything else.
Any public comment? All right, we'll move on to the recreation report with Kathy Clater.
Yeah, at our meeting, we resolved the issues with getting the bathrooms reopened and cleaned and supplies checked. We'll have the envelopes for parking money down there by next week. We're looking for volunteers for Monday, the 18th at 9 o'clock to help clean up the parking lot. What we're going to do is we're going to try to do from the bathrooms out, and the church ladies are going to provide homemade cookies and hot coffee starting at 4:30 in the morning on opening morning for free.
Have fun.
Yeah. And we can use all the volunteers we can get to help do the cleanup down there.
So I don't get up at 4:30. Can you save me a cookie? Oh, perfect. Okay. I'll write that down.
I thought only Mike had to be there at 4:30. And that's basically all we had. We could use more volunteers for just the general meetings also.
Did want to
And-
also, if I missed it, I apologize, but we have opening day coming up on the 23rd.
23rd.
Bingo night will be that night on the
Bingo.
23rd. So,
And pancake breakfast.
and pancake breakfast will be that Sunday on the
Sunday.
24th. So
Mhm.
Memorial Day weekend. I'm being handed this right now. I'm assuming we're going to post this.
Yeah, it's posted.
It's already posted.
It's posted.
Perfect.
That was, the Ron McDonald House will be doing their pancake breakfast as well, Saturday and Sunday, 7 to 11.
Awesome. So it's a lot of activities going on for opening weekend. So pretty excited. So be involved, have fun.
Yes.
Any board discussion? All right. Any public comment? All right, we'll move on to item 10 in the board report, starting with Kathy Glader.
I don't really have anything.
Ellen?
Okay, we had a budget committee meeting on May 5th, our first meeting, and we have Sherry Garcia and me as volunteers and Scott Hagan as board member. And so we encourage more people to come forward and volunteer for our budget committee. What we discussed at our first meeting was what information that we would need to proceed, like accounts payable and receivable information and previous budgets. And then we just talked with Mike a little bit about what we could do to encourage more people from the community to come and join us at the meetings.
Jerry?
Yeah, same with the sewer committee. We could really use some volunteers, more ears and knowledge, Larry, would be great.
All right.
Does the budget committee meet?
So currently all three committees meet on the first Tuesday of the month. It will be discussed in a later item as it overlaps with the quilting folks that are in here at that time. And that was an oversight on my side. And I apologize for that. I knew they started at 10. I did not realize they were there that long. And so we want to make sure we're respectful of that group. And probably need to realign our committee meeting timeframes, which we'll get to. Moving on to old business. I think Frankie already covered it with the water tender. Totally fine. Is there anything that you wanted to add to what you've already reported?
No. Good. Sorry.
Any additional board discussion regarding the water tender?
Yeah, fire apparatuses are extremely expensive to have worked on. They're just, it's the nature of the beast. It's what it is.
It was actually very entertaining and knowledgeable when we actually met at this place. They did a walkthrough of their equipment and how vast they're able to fix equipment. So going future and reference, if we have any issues, pump test, anything, they actually do mobile repair too. So, which is good, really good to know.
All right. Any public comment? All right, we'll move on to new business and item number 12. So we got opening day coming up with the bathrooms are now actually open, as far as I understand.
No,
They're not open, but they were opened.
we got everything opened up, but they're not open for the public yet, not till next Wednesday.
Perfect.
It's unwinterized.
Yes, it's unwinterized and cleaned.
So one of the things that we were discussing in the rec meeting that we wanted to bring to the board's attention would be some sort of security camera system that would go in there. This would very likely be a smaller purchase item. But what I wanted to bring to the board and to the public would be there's a lot of different options that we can do. They have like hunter cameras that are all SD. It senses motion and then it starts recording. When the SD card's full, you can swap it out or decide whether or not you need to keep it. We could try to do something with the Starlink. I was looking into some options there. We have an extra panel. A lot of ways that would work would probably increase our monthly price for Starlink, but it sounded like there might be a bridge or something like that we might be able to work around. The distance trying to connect this Wi-Fi for our building to the marina is the challenge. That could be a potential pretty easy fix if we could do that, because then we have cloud storage, we have real-time monitoring on any computer that's hooked up to the network. So that could be kind of cool in that space. I was looking at as far as powering the different cameras that are available. A lot of them are solar. You hook them up and they just go. I would imagine we get enough sun out there to keep that thing rolling.
Totally.
But if there's somebody who has specific knowledge or would say, hey, this is a great cost-effective solution I've used and it does the thing, ultimately what we're looking to do is be able to make sure that the bathrooms stay secure and we're avoiding vandalism and any kind of abuse of the facility.
So I think for now, a solar powered SD card would be plenty.
Yeah.
I mean, the only time we're going to be looking at the thing is if we had a problem.
If we have a problem, and then we can see who was there,
Okay.
you know,
And then turn that into proper authorities and
Right.
whatever we got to do.
And that's relatively inexpensive, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they're usually probably around between $100, $200 for something that would be pretty nice.
$200 for.
Yeah.
Really cheap.
I have no idea. Hasn't been there for a long time. Wasn't there last year. I know that.
I know it went inactive, but there was a camera down.
It's
It
still
is?
there. It's just, there's no active
Oh.
Wi-Fi down there, so
Are you talking about the
it
one
can't-
that's on that pump station? Oh,
it isn't now. Yeah, it isn't now though. And now it might be another thing for Starlink for down there is getting that camera active so people can actually see what's going on down there.
And
I
if
used
we
to
can,
check in the wintertime because I could see how much it snowed, how
yeah.
crappy my drive was gonna be on the way home.
and if we can make the bridge situation work with Starlink, then that should translate to pump stations potentially, as well as maybe the ponds. The ponds are a little further away, but potentially there's some technologies we can piggyback on to get out of the surveillance of what's going on. So that would save Brad and seeing the concerns that are going on with Lift Station 4, we could have eyes on it every day.
Right.
So that could be a really big win. So I'll do more homework on that and see what makes the most sense. But I just wanted to get more feedback because I don't know everything. So it's getting the feedback is important.
Becky,
I think in the future that would be good.
If I remember right, the camera that's existing down there when we were trying to get it fixed, it was about when COVID hit. The parts were too expensive. If we could get them, then it was worth to replace the camera.
okay.
So that's when we just scrapped the camera idea.
The other thing I would probably piggyback on that is we were paying for DSL for that facility.
Right.
And that camera was probably relying on that.
It was. sure.
But if we do the Starlink and do that as Wi-Fi, then potentially we might be able to use it. So we'll look into that too before we pull the trigger on anything.
Perfect.
Any public comment on any suggestion, Hunter camera is something that you've used that you might recommend? And if you don't have it off the top of your head, I mean, you can email it in, just let us know, like brand and name, model, stuff like that. We can look at it and see if it'll fit the bill. All right, appreciate it. So moving on to item 13, we got the board policy for budget. This is a pressing issue in that the budget committee is going and we're trying to get our budget going. The actual policy, as it's stated in our board policies, is the annual budget will be prepared by the general manager. I've leaned on the expertise of a committee to help me out as I am a new manager, and this is the first budget I'm putting together. So I want to make sure we get as many people that have some experience and know what's going on to put together the best and most accurate budget we can for the district. Prior to the review, the board directors, the board chair and vice chair shall meet with the general manager and review the annual budget proposal. And then the proposed budget as reviewed and amended shall be reviewed by the board in its regular meeting at the beginning of June. So that would be our next board meeting on June 11th. We would have a proposed final budget available. We have one more budget meeting prior to that. So that's a pretty tall undertaking. But I think we should be in a place where we can get that done. And then the rest of our board policy is the proposed annual budget as amended by the board during the review shall be adopted at its regular meeting at the end of June, which obviously is one of those items I'm talking about that doesn't pertain to us. We don't now have a regular meeting at the end of any month. So that would be something that potentially we need to vote, talk about our policy, say, hey, we want to get that and say that would be followed on the July 1st meeting. Now, where that falls into and becomes a problem is when you coordinate that with the state requirements, we are required by July 1 to have that preliminary budget, which is a proposed final budget. It's not like, oh, we're almost there. We're there unless there's feedback that needs to change it. We need to have that implemented and voted on 7/1. Our board meetings are the second Thursday of every month, so that's never going to happen. So theoretically for us this year, I think we're going to need to have a special meeting to make sure that we're compliant with that, and go that route. But that is just something that probably need to rework and massage our board policy to align with what's going on with the state. There's also a complete process to launching a budget from the state requirements, and this isn't an exhaustive list, but it's a summary. We have to schedule a meeting a minimum 2 weeks prior to the meeting where we're going to have a hearing or meeting to vote the final budget in. We need to publish the hearing date, time, place, all that stuff in a public newspaper, and that's per Governance Code 6061. On or before September 1st, the board must adopt the final budget per the state requirement. And then after adoption, the GM is forwarding that final approved budget to the county, and that goes to the county auditor. So that is the process that we kind of need to live within. So we're kind of on a tighter time frame than I was hoping for, but it is pretty much priority one at this point, and I don't see that we won't have this done on time. Probably just have to do that special meeting to make sure that it is put forth before the July meeting.
Perfect.
So I do have an action item on this. I don't know that I'm ready to actually, my goal for the action item was to vote a new board policy with new verbiage and new everything to align the two items, but I was unable to get that put together. So I would say as far as the action item for the budget, I would say we table that, but I would like to know whether or not you guys find value in me taking the time to actually align our board policy with the California and get that dialed in so that it makes sense. And I can
Yes,
present that to you.
definitely.
Yes.
So with that, I'll open it up to board discussion.
I don't have anything.
Okay,
Yeah, I
and then
think
we'll
that-
open it up to
that's
public
good.
comment. Okay, and I believe we need to motion to table if we want to do that.
Yes,
Yes, all motion table.
I'll second.
Okay, and Kathy Clater,
Yes.
Alan Stallings,
Yes.
Gerald Oliver.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to item 14 with Kathy Clater.
Oh, our delinquent fees are horrendous. So starting in our new fiscal year, 7/1 of 26, the district is going to begin to enforce policy 3120, which is collecting past due quarterly bills and shutting off service for non-payments as laid out in our policy. It's gotten to the point of being ridiculous that people can continue to use our sewer system and not be responsible to pay for the maintenance on it. And it's just bad.
So I would like to add in there on the, just kind of a couple call outs for the board policy that I think are worth mentioning. After the 32nd day, this is one day after, or about a month and a day after the due date of the bill, things would be considered late, and they would accrue a late fee. Now, our board policy does not state what that late fee is, but fortunately for us, our ordinance 8 does. It's a 10% late fee, and then each additional month is 0.5% per month going on. Each bill also accrues that late fee. So we bill quarterly. If you miss your April payment, the late fee would be kicked in on May 2nd. Or excuse me,
No.
it's due April 30th. Right?
No.
Okay. So then your late fee would kick in June 1st. And then on June 1st, you'd have that 10%. On July 1st, you'd get an additional 0.5%. On August 1st, you get an additional 0.5%. When we send out the next bill, and that one is also delinquent, it would get another 10% charge. So it's, the idea is to prevent folks from doing what you're talking about. If it gets to a point where we are, I think it was 60 days past due, or it's not 60 days, 2 billing cycles past due, there will be a notice for shutoff, a 30-day notice for shutoff. So in the event that we go an additional 30 days, we have the ability to shut off service using airbags. Is that correct, Brad? Yes. Okay. So we have the ability to shut that service off in the event that this is not being paid, not made current. if a service does need to get shut off, there is a $150 shut-off fee and a $150 reconnection fee that would have to be paid, as well as the bill brought to current before we could move that on. So that would just be part of, and again, this is all policy that we already have. We're not doing anything different here. We're talking about implementing the policy that's on the books. And then there is the option for like payment things. And so if you're under emergency status or whatever the case is, you need a little extra help. Like, we're not here to really beat you up. But as long as there's a reasonable and fair plan, and that's kind of what's spelled out in the policy through 3130, we can work with you to make sure those bills are achievable and we can make that happen. The monthly payment, really the note there is trying to get caught up should not exceed 12 months. So we should be able to put a plan in place together to make that happen within a year to get back to compliance. So that was what we had going on there. Trying to think on 10%, if there's anything else I had.
There are several agencies out there that will help people pay their bills also for
Mhm.
lower income people or whatever. Plumas County has a great program.
Yeah. There is a California state law governing code section 61115 that basically allows us in conjunction with ordinance 8 to create a lien on the property. The benefit to the district in this space is if somebody were delinquent for a year and we don't create that lien on the property and they're to sell their property, it's not disclosed. The real estate agent won't know about it potentially. Now a new buyer buys this house and has this debt that's not really theirs. And it gets really weird how we can or should enforce that. So once we follow this process, it makes sense that that lien becomes part of the property. If they were to sell their property, that lien has to be squared up just like any other lien.
Yeah, then it's
And-
attached to the property.
And then also it does for tax assessments and stuff of that nature. If those taxes are not paid, it goes into tax lien sale. So it's not something that would push us into foreclosing on anybody. But if it's not brought to current, from my understanding on that governing code, it would be the county that would then bring it to the tax lien auction. So it kind of just puts a little bit of pressure to make sure people are paying for their bill.
You know, also, normally when services like that are shut off in a city dwelling, Sacramento, whatever, the health department is notified because they don't have proper disposal of their sewage.
Yes.
And they can red tag those properties and they're you can't occupy them.
Yeah. And that would be,
Another step that
my guess is that's probably spelled out in ordinance 8, but I didn't get a
that's
real
fine.
exhaustive.
Yeah, yeah,
It was kind of a lot. So,
yeah.
so I guess at this point, this is a policy we have on the books. Is this something that we are looking to move forward with? We'll open it up for board discussion.
I think we should move forward with that.
Yeah, absolutely. People just need to pay their bills.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of the number of customers that aren't paying? A lot.
And can I just add to that, if you are receiving multiple invoices in the mail, that does not mean that you are getting billed every month. We bill quarterly. But if you are receiving additional invoices, that means you are behind on those invoices that we mail to you. It has nothing to do with being billed every single month. It's just, that's our way of letting you know these are the invoices you are behind on and this is what needs to be paid.
Okay.
Okay, so are we talking hundreds? Thousands of?
No.
Thousands of dollars. Like, we don't have that many people.
But hundreds of people.
Are
So,
we talking about like a quarter of the population or probably not that much?
How many are on abandoned property? Yeah.
Not as many as you would think. Believe it or not, some of the abandoned properties, are getting paid. But most of what's behind are residents here who are living here now.
So we'll open up to additional public comment.
Hi, Cheryl Alvarez. So we've skirted all around. What is the total dollar amount that we're dealing? Yeah,
I don't think at this time we have that number.
We don't have an actual report of the dollar amount.
I might, let me go check. Hold on, give me just a minute.
While she's doing that, I did want to make a note, something that I learned that may have been miscommunicated in previous meetings. You are not required to state your name for any public comment that you want to bring forward. If you would like to not do that, that is absolutely your prerogative. So just, I appreciate you stating your name, but I don't know when that might have been communicated. I have heard feedback from certain folks that that was communicated in the past. And I found out that that was not true. We're not allowed to ask that of folks, so.
It was, I don't want.
Okay. I figured not, we're a tight community, but also if you want to be anonymous or whatever the case is. The other option, if you truly want to be anonymous, you can also email the general manager email with any public comment and say, hey, I would like this read on this item, and I can make sure that it's here, and I can do that as well. Yeah, I think on this particular issue is something we've spoken about multiple times in the past. I think Ken was kind of working on it on his exit.
He had started, yeah.
And I think that it's something that really makes a lot of sense to move forward with, but we're dealing with, the last number I had was 832 EDUs that are hooked up to the sewer system. And then as far as the billing is concerned, from what I understand when she says thousands, that's going to be a few folks that are kind of long-term not paying. And then there are going to be a handful of folks that are also, less time frame. So
We have several people that have never paid from day one.
Yeah. And so I think that,
Is a collections company a option, or?
I mean, we potentially could. My understanding of that would be that it would be pennies on the dollar. And I think
Yeah,
we
we don't
have
know about
avenues that would be more, that would make more sense.
A lien would be a better
The other thing too that I would just throw out there is if this is a new habit that we're starting as a district, I think a nice warning, like we're talking about here in
Right.
March, we're talking about implementing this in July 1st.
Absolutely.
I think gives people a chance to kind of, oh, okay, they're going to take this seriously and start to try to figure out a plan to get caught up, as opposed to blindsiding somebody that may owe $1,000 or more dollars because they've been backdated for 2 or 3 years, maybe.
Yeah, it's not fair for other people to pay their bills. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Cheryl, I thought I had maybe added up the ones that I had done. I'm doing the spreadsheet, but it hasn't tallied yet. I could probably get that information to you by the end of the week.
That would
Of
be
next
fine.
week.
That would be fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also make a comment. Part of why it was brought in was to help go through the assessor's log and find out who the owners are. A lot of the issue we have is that even though we've asked the title company and realtors to let people know that they have a sewer bill when they buy, there's some people that have owned the place for 6 months, 9 months, a year, and they've never known to come in here. Unless the old owner calls us when they get the bill and say, hey, we know we sold this in November and we shouldn't be getting this bill. A lot of the new owners don't know. So I've been finding people, I've been going through, I think it's a 92-page assessor's log, trying to find out, match, okay, this person doesn't own it anymore.
But the seller has a legal obligation to tell them. The seller personally has a legal obligation in the state of California to say what utilities you have to pay.
Well, they don't do that. You would,
Well, they go after the owner.
Unfortunately.
They should have.
yeah, we get people in here all the time who's moved up here and they're like, we had no idea. We had no idea we have a bond payment. Those two things are just apparent, because,
They never get disclosed.
yeah, it never gets the
Well,
flow.
anybody that bought from Heritage was never disclosed, never.
Oh, ours was.
You're
Surprisingly, yeah.
Because everybody
The
else.
only reason it was disclosed was because our former owners had a grant to pay theirs off. but it was
Can't hear anybody talking.
Oh,
So,
thank you, Scott. Let's get a microphone over here. Scott won't be able to hear you or anybody. Sorry.
No.
You don't have to.
I just want to say I bought my property from David Leroy. I don't know if that's Heritage.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he was very specific in explaining to me the sewer payment, that I could pay off the bond in full or I could pay monthly payments on it. He was very clear about it. I want to state that. Now, it was 4 years ago. Now, David's not around anymore.
No,
I'm just saying that, he was very clear about it. So you're wrong about that. Okay?
Perfect. Any additional public comment regarding delinquent fees?
no.
All right.
Moving on.
So I'd say just for clarity on the motion, if we want to move forward with the motion, what are we motioning to vote on?
I can make a motion to enforce board policy 3120.
I'll second it.
All right. Kathy Clater,
Yes.
Ellen Stallings,
Yes.
Gerald Oliver.
Yes.
All right, moving on to action item 15. Turn it over to Frank Muse.
So with this resolution, years past, there's been an agreement with CAL FIRE to, if we ever need to.
Can't hear them.
Borrow equipment basically from them, that it's available. It's a simple agreement that's been signed in the past. They're requiring to have resolutions now from the boards going further with new regime, whatever changes. So with this resolution, it gives either the fire chief or the general manager to act on behalf of the board to ask for rental stuff. This does not necessarily mean a yes, we're going to rent it. It's just say, yes, we can talk to them. With the proposed side of it, it would still have to go in front of the board for approval for rental. Any prices, anything like this, it's just saying we can talk to them.
External speaker, would it have? No.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Some.
Is that renting to them or from them?
From them.
Okay.
Which we've never had to do it. We've never had to rent any equipment to my knowledge. And this agreement's been years ago, this was started.
But we rented some of our equipment out.
Out to them. That's a whole separate.
That's a different, okay.
That's the more likely scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see us ever needing to rent from them, but this is just to say, yes, we can talk to them if we ever have to.
Open up for a board discussion.
No, I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah, it's the same agreement.
It's the same agreement.
not
It's
a
just,
big
yeah.
thing. They just want a resolution.
They have
Just
to,
something
they have
that
to
they
get
need to
approval.
have,
Yeah,
yeah.
they have to get approval on it anyway. So I don't see any problem.
Yeah, I
with
made
that.
sure that this is not saying, yes, we can
No,
dollar
right.
amounts or anything. It still
Yeah.
has to go to board approval for
Yeah.
actual rental.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
All right, let's open up for public comment. Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Kathy Clater,
Yes.
Ellen Stallings,
Yes.
Gerald Oliver.
Yes.
All right. Item 16, so this is the one we were talking about at the beginning of the meeting, and unfortunately, it's probably why a lot of you guys are here. And I apologize in advance. I had half the information when I made the agenda, and I couldn't adjust it after the fact. So in the event that we do need to raise sewer rates, there is a whole process in what we need to do, which is kind of spelled out here through Prop 18, 45-day process. There's everything that's written in the notes here. That being said, there was a rate study, and part of that is that we are required to charge less or equal to the cost of actually maintaining the service. We are not allowed to charge more than it costs for us to maintain it. So that is actually a legal requirement, and that's why they involve rate studies in these things, to verify that we're not charging more than we should be. That being said, in 2023, there was a rate study that was done. There was a bill that the whole thing, the Prop 18 or 218 that was passed. Everything has pretty much already been done, and it was spelled out for the next 5 years what those rate increases would be. And that was laid out in a document that was not part of the board or not part of the agenda packet, because I didn't see it until after the agenda was posted. Unfortunately, I can't make any adjustments to the board or to the agenda packet once it's posted or within 72 hours of the meeting. So that was why this one kind of got a little squishy. But what I would like to do is provide the information that I have currently as to what should be happening starting July 1st. Based on the resolution, and we will make this an agenda item for the next month, if not maybe even a special meeting to talk and actually vote on it to make sure that and whether or not we need to vote on it. But for the resolution 2023 and the 9th resolution of the year, they basically spelled out what was going on, and the phrasing of that was specific increases that took place yet in prior years, but there will be up to a 4% increase based on the cost of living index for fiscal years 24-25 through 27-28. So everything I looked into for the cost of living index, the best version for us to really use is the California Consumer Price Index. That for last year was 2.514%. So that would be the increase that would be justified per our rate study, per our vote, per everything that is already implemented in our resolutions. And that would basically result in a $3.23 increase per quarter, which would break down to just over $1 per month. It would be what we're talking about as far as rate increases. And this would be true for not only this fiscal year, but also next fiscal year, 27-28, which we would follow whatever the California Consumer Price Index states that we can increase this rate. Based on that, from there, we potentially could look into doing another rate study. We could potentially look into additional costs that are accrued, but that is 2 years out from anything that we need to do at this point in time. Based on what I understand from the rate study that we got from North Star, we are probably 60% of the cost of comparable districts as far as our quarterly billing costs. The concern when this rate study was done is the sewer maintenance was significantly more than what was being paid, and the budget was probably tighter than it needed to be. I don't know if any of you have read The Death of a Water District, but it seemed like we were kind of heading down that path where we had not increased rates. And so therefore things get more expensive from prices of parts, hourly salaries for Brad, myself, all that stuff comes into play when we're talking about maintaining the sewer system. So my personal feeling is small incremental increases are much easier to tolerate than massive increases. And at the beginning of this particular rate study, I think we moved it up almost 40%. And that's a big overnight expense for a fixed household income, which I think was why there was so much backlash. And it sounds like there was other things too that I won't get into today. But long story short, this has already been voted on. It's already a thing. I would say, just for the interest of being transparent and clear, I think we should vote on maintaining this plan because we're a new board, we're a new district, or not district, but we're a new board, new employees. I think this is probably fairly new to most people as far as the detail that's in it. So I think it'd be worth visiting and making sure this still makes sense for us. And then we vote to improve it in the upcoming meeting.
I agree.
Agree.
So start with the board comment.
And that we would do in our next meeting to go ahead and then with that fulfill the requirement of notifying everybody by the July billing.
Yeah, so the notification of the 45 days is pertaining to Prop 218.
218.
So this technically is already part of our resolutions. So now if later we decide to move forward with rate increases after this 5-year plan, then we would have to go through all that process. So we could just table this until June, or we could hold a special meeting if we need to. But in the June meeting, if we decide to move forward with the 2.5%, it would be effective as of
July 1st.
July 1st. Now, that being said, we do also try to get our billing out ahead of time. So it might make sense to do a special meeting just so we can get ahead of it so that the bills can go out on time. So we're not pressed on time.
Last year, what we did was when we sent the actual billing out for July, we put a little note in there saying that this was a cost of living increase that's already approved by the bond.
Okay. Any additional board discussion?
No.
Okay, let's open it up for public comment.
Does the Prop 218 comment say will or can raise the rates?
The
How does it read?
The resolution reads there will be up to a 4% increase.
Okay, up to. How did you determine what it should be?
The finished part of that sentence is based on the cost of living index. And so what I looked into was what we can reference as a cost of living change for our county. And everything that I put together told me that nobody really does it by a city or a small district because it changes. So they said California Consumer Price Index was the typical thing that people lean on to determine the cost of living increase.
Okay.
That was the 2.514%.
So never are actual expenses being taken into consideration during this process.
I don't know. I understand the question.
Well, does the board or yourself evaluate the actual district expenses before calculating how this is?
Absolutely. So at this point right now, we're working on the budget. So we're trying to figure out what's going on with next year. So we're kind of playing a little blind right now because we're working with a less than adequate budget from previous years. What I can tell you from my experience, which is all of 4 months, 2 months active as GM, we need funding. Like we need it. We have a renew replace account that we do not have that we should, and that's in our board policies. We have added expenses with new personnel trying to take care of a lot of issues, as you've heard. We have maintenance that has not been completed on our sewer system for years. So there's a lot of pieces where we're falling down. We also have the mentorship added expense that we've taken on with Brad and myself trying to get our grade 1 licenses. So I can tell you based on what I've seen with the rate study from North Star, we are way behind where we should be even after the rate study. And the 2.5%, again, kind of coming back to it's an incremental change as opposed to coming back with a new rate study. Oh, we need to be here. You know, like I think it's a better move forward for us, and it'll give us a little more wiggle room in our budget.
What happens when we get to 2028 and there's no more increases?
That will be a decision that needs to be taking place with the board. If, from my understanding at this point, and I've learned all of this week.
Yeah,
So, from my understanding at this point, if we wanted to move forward with any rate increases after fiscal year 27-28, we would be probably required to get another rate study, which is pretty costly. And that rate study would then spell out what the next 5 years might look like.
When will you be giving monthly financial statements to the public? They are required by law quarterly.
Yeah. So
but
I think the first step there is we need the budget dialed in and finished so that we know what's going on there. I have spent the last 2 months chasing dollars. So full transparency is what's going on and where I think we're falling down. We have the treasury accounts that very few people have had eyes on, and I don't know how long. So those treasury accounts do have money in there. And from what I can put together, it does not have the right money. So when we left the county, what happened with the county was they basically take on the revenue for our district, and twice a year they do lump sum deposits into our account. I believe the understanding was those lump sums were entirely bond money. And so that lump sum went from our account into the bond. Well, I have found out that part of that is a fire assessment fee. Part of that may be, and I'm still trying to figure this out, whether or not there's a $49 fee that's attached to, that is attached as an assessment or something for a renew replace account. It either exists under the bond, and that's what's funding our renew replace account in the bond treasuries, or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then that should be funding our renew replace account as a district. That would be separate from the bond. Inside the bond, there is a renew replace account that currently has about $110,000. that is what we're going to be using to do the pond repairs, start talking about maintenance and looking at what we need to do for all these areas. So there is money there. But when you're talking about our sewer system, $100,000 is not a lot of money. We had a $97,000 bid to swap out check valves and fix the pond liner. And it would have depleted everything we had. So that's where we're kind of going through that. The bond money itself is a repayment of debt. So the bond money that's coming, it's not stuff we can use. It's not for the district.
I know that.
Yeah. So there's stresses there. And so it's trying to figure out what money went where, why it went there, where should have it gone, and getting everything in the right spot. I could definitely do a better job at being transparent with the process and the progress of that. But for me to put together a meaningful report.
Do you have written payable and receivable processes now?
Written payable and receivable process.
Right. Process from beginning to end. In other words, the payment comes in, what happens to it from there until it hits the bank,
That's what I'm trying to put together, basically an SOP, where it's like this money comes in on these dates, and then these are the things we need to take out of it and where they need to go. But I figured out, I believe all of it with the exception of the $49. So until I know where that needs to go, I don't really have a way to finalize that as the document you're referring to. So once I know where all the money is supposed to go, and that was part of the meeting with the county and talking to Taya, talking to Stephanie, she sent me home with a packet of charts.
Yeah.
Very helpful. She was very nice. She was gracious enough to give me
she is.
2 or 3 hours of her time. But I got to sift through it. And I got to see if the numbers I'm looking for are in those charts.
Yeah.
So I'm stretched pretty thin. I've been,
Okay, so you're working on written policies for the payables and receivables. That's good. What about the daily sewer maintenance schedule? Do you have a written monthly, weekly, annual written process for maintaining the sewer?
So we're currently working on an SSMP to finalize it, which is basically our maintenance plan for the sewer. Part of our mentorship with Kathy Stone and Dave is going to be finalizing that document. There's a lot of variables that go into that document as well. We need to know all the parts, lifespan of parts, how it costs to replace them, how often we should be replacing them, what a maintenance schedule looks like, how often they should be cleaned, all those things. And so that document is going to be exhaustive as far as how we're supposed to run the sewer system. I don't want to say that it has or hasn't taken place up until this point. I can tell you we're trying to do it the right way.
Thank you.
And so in that space, I'm leaning on Kathy and Dave's expertise. She's a grade 5. He's a grade 4. They both look at our system and say we have a very simplistic system. After our tour of Clearwater, I would have to agree with them. They do some amazing things out there. And what we're doing is fairly basic on the scale of what a sewer system can require. So I have hope that with that mentorship, we can really get that document where it needs to be and not just have a meaningless piece of paper that says things, but an actual schedule of things that we implement and we live by.
That's great. Thank you, Mike.
My pleasure.
I think you're definitely heading in the right direction, Mike. Thank you.
Definitely.
There's a lot of fires in a lot of areas, and
It's huge.
We're trying.
Yep.
We're really trying. I lost track. Were we talking about the sewer rate increase?
Yeah, sewer.
Okay. All right. Any additional public comment regarding the item 16? All right. So my recommendation again would be let's table this item and we'll revisit it based on the new information when we can bring it available to the public to review, because this is for my eyes only so far. So it's not fair to do anything.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll motion to table it.
Second.
All right. Kathy Clater,
Yes.
Ellen Stallings,
Yes.
Gerald Oliver.
Yes.
Moving on to item 17. As we briefly discussed earlier, we set the special meeting on the 1st of May and voted in a time and place for all of our standing committees to meet. I would like to reiterate, these committees are advisory committees. Without a quorum, without the board present, we can't make decisions. It's just a matter of putting ideas out there. And then those ideas, the ones that need to get voted on, we bring back to the board and we present them to them. And anything that's just like, hey, we're gonna, meet up and do a thing. Those ideas are discussed at that time. So it's not, I guess it's not a lot of pressure. The pressure comes back today when we present the things to the board. But anyway, so we did vote in on the first Tuesday of the month at 1 p.m., which is overlapping the quilting, is it committee club? Quilting club?
Quilting club,
All
quilting,
right.
sewing.
I just want to make sure I use the right terminology. So we want to make sure that we are respectful of that time. They've had that for years, and we didn't mean to step on toes there. So the options that I would bring forward would be either we can move that meeting back an hour at 2 o'clock. We have cleared that setup would not be bothersome.
Right.
That being said, I mean, depending on how many volunteers and chairs and setup and things of that nature, it could be something to consider on that Tuesday. Or it looks like Wednesdays, we pretty much have full range. So I think Wednesdays we have full range. So if we wanted to do 1 o'clock and then kind of keep the same time frames, that could be a benefit as well. The one caveat in this space was the goal on these meetings was to take place the week prior to our board meeting.
Right.
So that in the event we have something that needs to be an action item, I have time to get it on the agenda so we can take action versus waiting a whole month around. If the committees meet after the 72-hour period,
Right.
we can't do anything until the following month. So I think Tuesday and Wednesday would both be sufficient. My goal moving forward is to produce the agendas by Friday before I leave Friday. That way everybody has the weekend, a little extra time. It's more than the 72 required. Plus, if there's any adjustments or changes, I can make those first thing Monday morning without having to postpone the meeting. So that could be a benefit. I did fall down on that this week. Was not able to get it out till Monday.
What's a weekend? Any day works for me, Mike. It doesn't really matter. I just got to put it on my calendar. So
Okay.
Any day, anytime.
Same for me in terms of that day, if we could, because we're talking about the recreation and the budget committee too, just
Yep.
now. We moved everything up later an hour. Boom,
That
boom,
would
boom.
work.
We keep the same day, but just move
Do
it
a 2,
ahead
3,
an
and a
hour.
4 instead of a 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, if that works out for quilting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what they said. They wrap up it by 2.
Perfect.
So.
Yeah, that'll work.
So let's go ahead and open that up to any public comment. All
I'd
right.
like to just say, it sounds like you guys are being thoughtful. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have a motion? Yeah. We're trying. Do we have a motion?
Okay, I can make a motion that we move the sewer committee till 2 o'clock on Tuesday, the 1st of every month.
I'll second.
All right. Kathy Clater,
Yes.
Alan Stallings,
Yes.
Gerald Oliver.
Yes.
And then kind of going through the same exact thing, are we looking to just push back the recreation by 1 hour and move it to 3?
3
Yeah,
o'clock.
just push them all back.
Any public comment on that? All right. Do we have a motion?
All in motion.
I'll second.
All right. Kathy Clater,
Yes.
Alan Stallings,
Yes.
Gerald Oliver.
Yes.
Right. And the budget committee, same thing. We're just going to push it back to 4 o'clock.
Mhm.
I will
And-
motion.
Oh, not yet. Any public comment on that?
You in a hurry?
All right. Let's go back to your
Yes.
motion there, Jerry.
All motion. Yes.
Second.
All right. Kathy Clater,
Yes.
Alan Stallings,
Yes.
Gerald Oliver.
Yes.
And item number 20, this is a vote to accept Ken Ward's resignation effective March 12th. This is not actually a requirement that we have to do, but for cleaning purposes and bookkeeping, specifically to isolate the dates of resignment and all that stuff, it made it kind of, it was a best practice if we would vote in to accept his resignation. I don't know that we could actually not accept it because it is a resignation, but
He was a volunteer.
exactly. So, but it was brought to my attention that's something that would be better if we voted on
Okay.
This is new to me, but cool.
it. Fair enough. Any board discussion?
No.
Okay. Any public comment? All right. Do we have a motion?
All motion.
I'll second.
Kathy Clater,
Yes.
Alan Stallings,
Yes.
Gerald Oliver.
Yes.
And I'll turn it over to Kathy for item 21.
So we get to go home. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I will motion.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Oh, you
Oh,
gotta do
I
roll
gotta vote.
call.
Kathy Clader,
Yep,
Ellen Songs,
Yes.
Gerald Oliver.
Yes.
meeting's adjourned.
Thank you. Time
Time, Kathy.
2:20.
2:20.
2:20.